Hey everybody, I'm Billy, and this is my beautiful wife, Taylor.
That's my name.
And our son, Sully, has been on dialysis for 93 days.
93.
He's actually taking a nap right now, which is why we have time to do this.
If you didn't know anything about Sully, he was born in stage 5 kidney failure. We did avoid dialysis for 9 months, but we since had to do a 2-week training course and learn how to do peritoneal dialysis in our house. We've been doing it for a little over 3 months now, and you do it every day, and it really becomes routine. So that's a little bit of Sully's story. At first, there were so many unknowns in his life. We've shared some of those stories on our channel as well, and we'll continue to as we move towards transplant. But I'm being evaluated to be his donor right now, so we're in kind of a crazy season, but wanted to get this info out there so that people who didn't know anything could learn a little bit.
Because this would have been helpful when we first found out that dialysis was probably going to happen. But before we start, we just want to say we're not doctors. We're not dialysis nurses, but we were trained by dialysis nurses, and we do this every single day.
Yeah.
So everything in this video is what we actually do. It might be different than what your nurses tell you to do.
You follow your nurses.
Yeah. Do not blame us for any trouble you get into. But we try to follow it to the T, what they told us. And the other thing I wanted to say was, if you got a diagnosis that you're going to be using peritoneal dialysis, or your child is going to be maybe born with some sort of kidney issue and they're going to need it, we just wanted to say that you definitely can do it. It's not, when we first heard, it was kind of like, no way. Like, that's, our life's over. Like, we're done. I mean, we've done it for 3 months now, and
Life's good.
it's good. I mean, we got to be home by 6 o'clock every night, but that's fine. If it means that Sully gets to live and have a good life, then we'll do it. But you can definitely do it. Don't be too scared. To start this whole process, we're going to just start with a quick room tour just to show you what Sully's room kind of looks like with everything in there.
We'll start in this corner with this cart. This cart holds almost exclusively things we use daily for dressing changes, which I'll get to later, and setting up and connecting Sully to the machine. Over here in the closet, you'll find our storage for anything and everything medical supplies. It has replacement gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, bleach solutions, supplies for dressing changes, clean blue pads. It's got our dialysis textbook and even our emergency antibiotics in case of a contamination.
All those labels you see on those cabinets and stuff, that was all...
Yeah, label maker, that was my best friend. When you're on dialysis, it's really important that you have some system of organization. It doesn't have to be the same as ours. But one of the tricky parts is you have to keep on top of what supplies you have, because you'll be placing orders for those supplies, and you don't want to miss something. Otherwise, you'll probably be calling around to local hospitals and trying to get a delivery otherwise.
And next stop on the room tour is our handy dandy cart. This cart holds the dialysis machine, aka the cycler, and his massive blood pressure machine. And we've got our table, which you will definitely want. We'll actually have the table and any other things we found helpful linked in the description below. And we've got our scale that we use to weigh Sully every morning and every night. And finally, the dialysate room. These are all boxes of dialysis solution that goes into Sully's body. We know there's a ton of supplies, but don't get too overwhelmed.
When it actually comes to setting up the machine, kind of gives you a curfew. Like we said earlier, we got to be home by 6 every night. We don't have to do that, but we choose to start at the same time every night. Just gives us a good routine. There's been times where we've been later and it's kind of messed up. I mean, he's a baby, so it kind of just messes up his sleep schedule.
And for him, it's 10 hours every night, and so we try and make sure we do it like right as he's going to sleep, so that he doesn't have to be awake in the morning while it's still going.
Another world you're going to step into that is strange is dressing changes. If you are on peritoneal dialysis, or your kiddo is, he's going to have a dressing over the catheter that's coming out of his body.
Dressing is basically like a fancy word for bandage.
Yes, and that area needs to stay as sterile as possible. Anytime it gets wet, or Sully pukes on it, or he pooped on it once, which was pretty funny, we have to change his dressing. And we typically do it every other day. They recommend every other day, every day. In there, somewhere in there. Needed. And that's pretty intimidating too. There's a lot of supplies, and that's part of your 2-week training. It seems like a lot, but I mean, we bust it out in like 10 minutes.
Before we set up the machine, we've got to take Sully's blood pressure. We do this to make sure his body isn't hanging on to too much fluid, because that's what determines how strong a dialysis bag to use that night. Then we weigh him to chart his growth patterns, and we take his temp for good measure. Now, when it actually comes to setting up the machine, you've got to put on a mask and wash your hands.
Learning how to hand wash was actually the funniest part of the dialysis training.
It was the very first thing, and our nurse just like straight face said, okay, we're going to hand wash now.
Yeah, I don't even think she introduced herself.
I started laughing.
Yeah, she was
I
awesome.
like, I know how to wash my hands. She's like, I know you know how to wash your hands. It's different.
Yeah, it is. It's way different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty intense.
It's the same type of hand washing that surgeons actually use before they go into surgery. You'll learn all the different motions.
Getting underneath the
Fingernails, the thumbs. But it's the number one way to prevent infection.
Once we're done washing our hands, we close the door and the vent.
Which kind of brings up the home visit. Before they let you come home with your kid or yourself to do peritoneal dialysis, they're going to come, a nurse and a social worker?
That's okay, man.
Yeah, are going to come to your house and they're going to check to make sure that your room is suitable for dialysis.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is they want to make sure you have enough storage space for all your supplies. You have to have a vent that can fully close, a door that fully shuts off the room, and then I think they check for like mold and things like that as well.
Yeah, and later in the video we'll talk a little bit more about contamination, but really if your door isn't shut or if there's a draft of air coming through, any amount of bacteria in the air landing on your catheter when you're connecting can result in infection. So that's why it's so strict. If they're coming, clean your room.
And keep it clean.
Keep it clean.
Next, you turn on the cycler, load the bag onto the heating element. That way the fluid going into his body isn't too cold. Then the machine connects to the network. The cycler actually has its own router. That way Sully's info can always be sent straight to his nurses and you don't have to worry about your Wi-Fi or anything like that. Then we input his weight and blood pressure and nightly concentration. Then we load the set. But first, you got to sanitize and get new gloves. At this point, anyone in the room needs to have a mask on. Then you load the cassette into the cycler. You do so by opening the tray and snapping it into place. Then you hang the rest right on the front like so. Clamp every single clamp on the cassette and press go. While it's self-testing, you can rip off these little pieces of paper and organize all the hosing. Just be careful not to knock off any of the caps or anything. Lay the drain bag down below and make sure to clamp the big white clamp on the top of the drain bag. Always connect this line to the drain bag. It does not have to be a sterile connection. And before you connect the bag to the machine, you've got to sanitize and swab gloves again. Get used to it. And you always connect the red clamped line, this one right here, to the bag on the heating element. Red equals heat. This connection must be sterile. If any mistakes are made, you have to throw everything away, turn off the machine, and start over. If you're a full-grown adult, you'll probably need more than one bag, so you grab this line and connect to a bag underneath like so. Once the bag is connected, break the little bar inside the bag to release the solution. Open the red clamp and also the clamp on the patient line. Click the green button, and it's go time. The machine is priming, aka getting all the air out of the tubes. Now's a good time to set up your bucket of supplies for when you're making the connection to whoever's using dialysis. We always put Sully to sleep before connecting him. It's just better for everyone.
And the actual connection process of Sully to the machine is very, very important. This is what made training so stressful, don't you think?
Yeah, because they tell you all the different infections that can happen. Really, with any other connection, if you mess it up, you can just throw away everything and start over. But when you're connecting to yourself with the catheter that is surgically placed in your body, you have to keep that clean every single time. And if you don't, then there's repercussions, whether it's going to a hospital or starting antibiotics and doing all these different things. And so it's definitely the most high stress moment of everything.
Yep.
But like Billy said, it does become muscle memory.
Yeah. We've only had one mess up, and we just went to connect. It's all right. It could happen to anybody. But she went to connect him, and somehow something slipped, and her clean glove, brand new glove, hit the tip of the catheter. So we were freaking out because in training they just told us, like, if you touch it or if it's contaminated, you're going to the hospital because he's getting an infection. Turns out that's not the case, at least in our scenario. That's called a touch contamination. And because Taylor had recently sanitized her hands, put new gloves on, grabbed the catheter, touched it, then nothing happened. And they didn't even tell us to use antibiotics or anything. They just said, watch them. If you're going to contaminate them, that's the best way to do it.
But don't.
But don't.
We say that kind of jokingly now, but at the time, like...
It was terrible.
I was devastated.
Anyways, sanitize your hands again, get new gloves, and set up your table. You're going to want a blue pad, a box of gloves, some bleach solution, a mask, 2 gauze pads, an emergency clamp and mini cap, and 1 more blue pad. Open the gauze pads and pour a good amount of bleach solution on each one. If something touches the pads, throw them away and get new ones. Now you're going to want to put that spare blue pad under your catheter, grab one of your gauze pads and clean the catheter for 1 minute. Then you're going to grab your other gauze pad and wrap the catheter in it and let it it soak for another minute. Then you unwrap it and let it air dry for 10 to 20 seconds. Then you grab the patient line and sterilely connect the catheter and the line. If you touch the tip of the catheter when the cap is off, call your dialysis team right away. Hit the green button twice.
That's it.
That's it.
That's the whole process. We just want to stress again and again and again that you absolutely can do this. It just becomes part of your day, just like anything. And for a lot of people, it's only for
A season
a season.
of life.
Yeah.
So don't lose hope. You can do it.
And if you want to see what Sully's life's all about, we have Instagram, TikTok. We post obviously on YouTube a lot, and you'll see it all.
He's our miracle. So we want to share his story and the light that he is.
Thank you.